Welcome to episode 69 of the Loane Hockey Podcast, where today we're going to be talking about one of the NHL's best players and one of the all-time greats, Sidney Crosby from the Pittsburgh Penguins. And ever since being drafted in 2005 by the Penguins, Crosby is heading into his 20th season now, and he's been overly dynamic over the course of those 20 years. He's never been under a point per game, which is remarkably impressive. He's always been able to maintain over a point per game pedigree, and being able to maintain that has been allowing him to have sustained success in the back half of his career. And then you really look at what he's made of and what he's able to do in terms of on ice play, the overall play, and how he's able to create offense. There's a lot of well-roundedness to how he's able to generate inside the offensive zone and the defensive zone as well. And he's a crucial playmaker, but he's also a crucial goal scorer. He's more crucial on the playmaking side because he generates passes almost from the back of his head, because he can see plays developing in the back of his head, and he has really elite vision to be able to see lateral playmaking elements, but also see playmaking elements moving north, anticipate plays, be able to anticipate space, not only for himself, but for teammates as well. Being able to understand a lot of different structures and variety in terms of his game and how he's able to generate offense, how he's able to generate plays, how he's able to generate structure within his own playmaking elements as well. And Crosby's a very dynamic dual threat player who, like I said, over the course of time, you notice his playmaking more than anything else in terms of how he's able to create offense, how he's able to create royal road plays, how he's able to create cross seam plays, small area plays, triangular plays, little detailed plays that are hard to execute and hard for any average player to execute. But then you look at his goal scoring, and what really stands out to me the most is his net front play and his ability to tip pucks, because his ability to tip pucks is really second to none in terms of his scoring ability at times, and how he's also understanding of body positioning elements. So being able to get inside on the defenseman, being able to understand stick work, feet elements, and being able to leverage his low center of gravity so that way he can get body position much more clearly than any other player, any other average atypical player. And so Crosby, he's really good at being able to use his hands to tip pucks, deflect pucks, being able to tip pucks with accuracy and purpose, and being able to fool goalies at times. And then around the net front, I notice his body position elements even more so as well, because not only is it more important for him to get inside positioning, but he's really thoughtful of where he needs to move and the timing elements for where he needs to move into space in certain sequences. So certain elements require him to be more involved in those 50-50 battles at the front of the net, especially compared to if you're tipping pucks from the mid slot area. It's a lot different at the net front, because typically defensive covers like to collapse at the net front. They like to manage the net front play more, because obviously that's a high traffic area, but at the same time, they're trying to negate the impact of the players that are at the net. And Crosby's really skilled at being able to generate plays coming off the back wall. So he can make little plays off the back wall or behind the net, and he can sneak out in front of the net quickly because he anticipates these sequences really well. And his anticipation is very proactive in terms of how he thinks and how he's able to think in terms of the next play. So when he makes a pass, or when he generates a pass, or he makes a play, immediately he's moving to the next space and he's trying to find an outlet, and he's trying to find where to see the play developing, how to figure it out, how to process it, and figuring out ways to anticipate the next sequence of events. So he's not only thinking in the moment, he's thinking about the future and thinking about how to make plays ahead of everybody else. So that's what really separates him in terms of net front ability and body positioning elements in terms of anticipation. Like I said, being able to get inside positioning, leveraging his center of gravity, leveraging his balance on his feet, and leveraging his stick work so that he doesn't get tied up easily. That's another big thing, is being able to have that weight from your arms and your lower body so that way you don't get tied up at the net front from defensemen too easily. And obviously, Crosby is a target for many defensemen, but Crosby has to get underneath sticks with his own stick and make sure that he can find ways to stay elusive with his stick positioning so that way his stick doesn't get caught up in the hands of the opposing defender. So another big thing I mentioned briefly is back wall play when it comes to Crosby's game, and how he's very elusive coming off the back wall and very elusive with his timing. So, and I've noticed this with some really good centers in the past as well, and notably Jonathan Tays and Patrice Bergeron, where they have notable traits on the back wall. I don't know if it's a center thing or if that's a general thing that has elite players repertoire in there. But with Crosby, you notice it almost all the time. I've noticed it a lot with him in terms of how he's able to process on the back wall and how he's able to make those small area plays, how he's able to make small area hybrid plays as a passer, but also being able to sneak plays around the net and create wraparounds as a scorer. So he can create it in a multitude of ways in that way as well. And again, he's a very aware thinker, so he's not going to force plays necessarily all the time. And if a play is not there, if the wraparound attempt's not there, he's not afraid to curl back and maintain possession of the puck and try to still move the puck around a little bit, see if there's other options that open up. So in that sense, that's really good about Crosby as well because he has the discipline and understanding of okay, these situations, I don't need to pass the puck. I don't need to make this play. I don't need to make this wraparound attempt. I don't need to do this or whatnot. And I can just hold on to the puck and possess it a little bit longer, wait for a better play to open up. Sometimes that happens, sometimes it doesn't. But that's a perfect world. So with Crosby, and another really big thing I noticed with him is deceptive passing. And it's such an important thing. And it's such a vague terminology type thing sometimes because what is deceptive passing really? But what he does with his deception, he sells with his eyes. So he sells lanes with his eyes. He sells passes with his eyes. He sells his stick work and his stick positioning with his eyes. So he can sometimes have an open blade and act as if he's going to pass right away, but he holds on to it for that extra second, waits for the lane to open up. Or he can curl and drag around a fender, or he, like I said, he can sell with his eyes. So his eyes, it's a no look pass or a backdoor pass, whatever it may be. He can sell with his eyes in that sense, and then also at the same time he could use deceptive passing and cross seam sequences. So this fools not only defensemen but goalies. So that's two elements instead of one, which is dual threat. And so with Crosby, what I really like about his ability with his deceptive passing is to use it with efficiency. And obviously, he's a really skilled passer. He can make plays with no look, and he can make plays with efficiency. He can make plays with accuracy. He can land passes on the tape of teammates' sticks with precision and being able to allow them to have efficiency in how they're able to maintain the puck. So he's able to lead teammates into space with his passing elements. So with Crosby, he's a very dual threat minded player, like I've mentioned many times, and he understands different points when it comes to playmaking. And that's a really crucial part is he doesn't have one layer when it comes to his playmaking. He has a multitude of layers and multitude in his arsenal to be able to create these playmaking elements. So that allows him to be a dual threat player when he's on the ice because not all the time the defensemen are able to process what he's actually interpreting and what he's going to do. They're not actually going to figure it out right away. Is an elite shooter, not necessarily. He is an elite shooter in the sense because you look at his hockey sense and timing on his shots, because his hockey sense is so elite in all forms of the game. So it rounds out to every part of his game in some sense. With his shooting, he's not an elite high volume shooter per se, but what he's elite at is anticipating those shot lanes, anticipating when he needs to shoot, the timing at which he needs to shoot, how and the angle he needs to shoot from, those different elements. He's not going to be a shooter all the time. He doesn't have a true shot first mentality, I would say. But with him, he understands the timing and rhythm. Is it rhythmic? Rhythmic, yes. Rhythmic elements that go into that. And that's really important because you don't necessarily have to be an elite shooter, but as long as you understand the hockey sense components that go into the shot and go into the timing, that's also just as important because you could be a high volume shooter from inside space, but if you don't have the timing and the rhythm down and understanding of where lanes are going to open up, it neutralizes itself out. It doesn't really benefit per se. So Crosby, because he has that ability to understand timing elements in his hockey sense, that allows him to be not necessarily a high volume shooter, but a quality shooter in the sense of how he's able to use shot lanes and how he's able to use efficiency in his shots. So that's the differentiation when talking about Crosby and his shooting ability. And he's had moments and times where he scored plenty of goals in the past in many different seasons. And he was well known for being a really good shooter for periods of time, but he is more so a playmaker than anything else, more so a pass first player. And I've even seen it in the past handful of years where you see that pass first mentality. He's looking to pass. Anytime he gets the puck, if it's off the rush, off a line rush scenario, on an entry scenario, I notice that his eyes are looking to pass almost all the time. So the shot first mentality from him is not necessarily a thing. He likes to be able to have those passing options and defer a little bit more, which is a really good thing. So it allows him to have a lot more efficiency when creating offense for his team.